Assalamu alaikum. Please be seated. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We will start tonight's program with the recitation of the Holy Quran and its Urdu translation by Ibrahim Chaudhry Sahib.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم واشكروا لله إن كنتم إياه تعبدون. उर्दू तर्जमा। मैं पनाह मांगता हूँ अल्लाह की शैतान मरदूद से। अल्लाह के नाम के साथ जो बेइंतहा रहम करने वाला, बिन मांगे देने वाला और बार बार रहम करने वाला है। बस मेरा जिक्र किया करो, मैं भी तुम्हें याद रखूँगा, और मेरा शुक्र करो और मेरी नाशुक्री ना करो। है वो लोगों जो ईमान लाए हो, अल्लाह से सब्र और सलात के साथ मदद मांगो। यकीनन अल्लाह सब्र करने वालों के साथ है। है वो लोगों जो ईमान लाए हो, जो रिस्क हमने तुम्हें दिया है उसमें से पाकीज़ा चीज़ें खाओ और अल्लाह का शुक्र अदा करो अगर तुम उसी की इबादत करते हो। जज़ाकल्लाह।
Jazakumullah. English translation by Junaid Bakr.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, therefore remember me, and I will remember you, and be thankful to me, and do not be ungrateful to me. O ye who believe, seek help with patience and prayer. Surely Allah is with the steadfast. O ye who believe, eat of the good things we have provided for you, and render thanks to Allah, if it is He whom you worship. Jazakallah.
Jazakumullah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah to all the attendees and our respected guests today. The purpose of today's program is to give gratitude to Allah Almighty for the services that Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA was honored to render during the Sadarat of Madil Abdullah Sahib from 2018 to 2023. This is a tradition of Jamaat and auxiliaries that when someone serves in a department for a certain period of time, then when he moves on to other services and someone else takes on, then he is recognized for the services and sacrifices he makes, he made during his time. And of course, the main purpose, the sole purpose of doing this exercise is to offer our gratitude to Allah Almighty. Throughout history of Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, Khulafai Ahmadiyyat have attended the farewell programs of Sadran Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya. On one such occasion, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, Ayyadahullah bin Nasr al-Aziz, graced the farewell program in the honor of former Sadr Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, Germany, on 25th of October 2019. Huzur delivered a brief address in which he gave invaluable advice to the Majlis. I will present a few words from that today. Huzur says, today's ceremony is in honor of the outgoing Sadr Khuddamul Ahmadiyya. He has completed his 6-year term. By the grace of Allah, those who work in Khuddamul Ahmadiyya are doing an excellent job in every country of the world. I would only say to the outgoing Sadr that the spirit of service that he had before as a Khadim should not be lost because of certain other responsibilities that are placed on him. You should not think that because you got certain other offices in Jamaat that you have some higher status now. Rather, every office holder should understand that the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said that Sayyidul Qawmi Khadimuhum, that the leader of the nation is its servant. If this spirit is instilled in each of our office holders, a revolution can begin. You read poems, make passionate speeches, show grand expressions, and also recite taranas. But it will only be of real benefit when your way of thinking is supporting your words. Your actions are backing up your words. So the next Sadr should also take care of this, and the one who has served for a long time and is getting an opportunity to serve elsewhere should also keep this in mind. Every office holder, from Amir Jamaat to the local level, should remember that it is the grace of Allah that he is given the opportunity to serve the religion, and this is not anyone's right. So always remember this grace of Allah. Huzur continues, Qaideen are also sitting here. So let me tell them about Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, that one of the tasks of Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, a very big task, is to protect Khilafat Ahmadiyya. They also make a pledge for this. Protection is not just to perform security duty or be part of the Hifazat-e-Khas team. Other people can perform this task too. The real protection is to spread the words of the Khalifa of the time, act upon them, and make others follow it as well, and to take care of the new generation. It is not enough to simply claim that we will fight to the right and the left and at the front and the back. This is not a matter of fighting. Today's fight and today's jihad is to follow the instructions. And this is the real work that Khuddamul Ahmadiyya must do. This is the task of every Qaid, every Zaim, every Nazim, every Muhtamim, and of Sadr Sahib as well. So always remember that whatever is said in speeches or sermons, you should act upon them and make others follow it as well. If you lead by example, then others will try to follow it too. Unquote. May Allah Ta'ala enable all of us to follow these words. As part of this tradition of giving a farewell, one tradition that has been part of this since the first farewell ceremony held in the honor of Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmed Sahab, when he became a member of Majlis Ansarullah, is the presentation of a resolution by the National Majlis Amla on the occasion of the farewell. So yesterday on December 8th, the Majlis Amla of Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya passed a resolution, and I will read that out. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. By the grace and mercy of Allah Almighty, Madil Abdullah Sahib had the honor of serving Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA for a period of 5 years, ending in October of 2023. Madil Abdullah Sahib started his services in Khuddamul Ahmadiyya as a Saik in 1998. Between 1998 and 2003, he then served as Nazim Ishat, Nazim Atfal, Motamid, and Naib Qaid. From 2003 to 2008, he served as the Qaid for Philadelphia Majlis. During this time, the Majlis had the honor to receive the Alam-e-Inami from the blessed hands of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz, in 2008 at Jalsa Salana, USA. From 2010 to 2013, Madil Abdullah Sahib served as Regional Qaid for the East Region, and in 2014 to 15, he served as Regional Qaid for Eastern Pennsylvania region. From 2015 to 2017, he had the privilege of serving as Muhtamim Khidmat-e-Khalq, and in 2017-18, he served as Naib Sadr Majlis. He had the distinct honor to serve as Sadr Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA from 2018 to 2023. During his time as the Sadr Majlis, we were a witness to countless blessings of Allah Almighty. At the time of his appointment, the United States of America was blessed to have Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz, present on the East Coast. We were fortunate to have detailed guidance from Huzur to Sadr Majlis and the Majlis Amla. Similarly, during the second visit of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz in 2022, the National Majlis Amla was honored to have direct guidance by Huzur Anwar Ayyadullah bin Nasir al-Aziz. More than 700 Khuddam showed exemplary dedication and sacrifice, led by Sadr Sahib Majlis throughout the 3-week tour. In Huzur's own words, and I quote, "I can say that from an administrative perspective, the Khuddam of USA are on par with any other Majlis. Security duty was also done in an excellent way," unquote. In addition to the in-person visits by Huzur Anwar Ayyadullah, Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA was blessed to have a total of 6 virtual mulaqats with beloved Huzur Ayyadullah. Over 800 Khuddam and Atfal in total were blessed to enjoy the company of Huzur Anwar Ayyadullah with 2 mulaqats each in Silver Spring, Maryland, Los Angeles, California, and Dallas, Texas. Based on the guidance of Huzur Anwar Ayyadullah bin Nasir al-Aziz, Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA was able to pay strong attention to the national, regional, and local ijtimaat of Khuddam and Atfal across the country. Similarly, the organizational structure was strengthened with the establishment of complete amilajat at the local and regional level. On the humanitarian front, the Majlis was honored to fund a new hospital in Tanzania by raising $200,000 in 2022. By the sheer grace of Allah Almighty, Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA purchased and renovated its headquarters named as Sarai Khidmat by Huzur Anwar Ayyadullah and inaugurated by him in October of 2022. The blessings continued by the purchase of a second property in 2023, an 80-acre piece of land named Bagh-e Ahmad by Huzur Anwar Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasir al-Aziz. We, The members of Majlis-e-Amla of Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA passed this resolution on December 8, 2023 to commemorate the occasion of the farewell of former Sadr Majlis Madil Abdullah Sahib with the sole purpose of recounting the blessings of Allah Almighty on the Majlis. Jazakumullah. I'll request Sadr Sahib Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya Abdullah Dibba Sahib to present a small token of gratitude on behalf of the Majlis. Barakallah. Next, we have an address by Madil Abdullah Sahib.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I want to give thanks to Allah Ta'ala for having the opportunity to serve Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya for the past 5 years. Alhamdulillah. I wasn't prepared to give a speech, so I want to thank Khalifatul Masih that from the time I became Sadr to the end of the Sadarat, Hazur gave constant guidance and prayers. From the first week I was Sadr, Hazur instructed me that Sadr Majlis should walk with Amir Jamaat USA, that local Qaid Majlis should walk with a local president. And from that point on, any instructions that came, we tried our best to abide by those instructions. And, I wasn't able to accomplish much, but I think whatever little we could accomplish was solely because of the guidance and prayers of Khalifatul Masih. I also wanted to thank, Amir Sahib, Amir Jamaat USA. He really helped us and pushed us to be stronger as a majlis. And, I want to thank my parents as well, who my father is here and, from a young age, connected us with Khilafat and the Jamaat. And, from the time I was a tifl, I would be on the streets of Philadelphia doing tabligh. And just that drive and push to keep me close to the Jamaat was very helpful. And my mother being there when I left the house, so when I came back to the house, she was there, giving us her support. And my family that was always supporting me when I would travel far away or when I would be in long conference calls late at night, my family was there supporting me as well. And I want to thank, each of you, the previous Sadran that really paved the way for us, that made it easy for us, for the work that we did. And want to thank the National Amla and Sadr Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya for arranging this. I'm not worthy of this at all. And I'm actually embarrassed to be here. But I'm thanking Sadr Sahib for organizing this. And the last thing I want to say is that, as Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, we should really exemplify that. We just heard the words of Hazur, but Khuddam doesn't mean officers. Khuddam means servants. And when you think of Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, we should think that we are on the front lines. We are getting down and dirty and ready to achieve anything that's asked of us by Khalifatul Masih, by Amir Jamaat, by Sadr Majlis. Whatever is asked of us, we should be ready to do it and be at the forefront of it. But Jazakallah, Assalamu alaikum.
हजरत मोहम्मद मुस्तफा गुलाम अहमद की इस्लाम अहमदिया खिलाफत अहमदिया हजरत अमीरुल मोमिनीन मजलिस खुदामुल अहमदिया यूएसए जमात अहमदिया यूएसए नारे तकबीर
Jazakallah. That was much needed. Program has been very intense so far. So the rest of the program is going to be very different because Sadr Sahib is going to lead the program. And Jazakallah to all the, mashallah, we have most of our former Sadran Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya right now with us. Bilal Rana Sahib was unable to travel. He definitely would have traveled. He's joining us here online. And we have other Sadran and Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA with us. So we have a session moderated by respected Sadr Sahib. I would say Abdullah Dibba Sahib, since we have so many Sadran here. And the topic is, it's a faith-inspiring session of, it's a panel discussion of sorts of personal experiences of our former Sadran with Khilafat Ahmadiyya. Sadr Sahib.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I wanted to start by recognizing every form of service that everyone has done and continues to do, some are still doing, by serving us food. As Ahmadil Abdullah Sahib has said, being Khuddam, it means to be servants. So from those who cook the food to those who will clean afterwards, every kind of service is recognized by Allah Ta'ala. But we will just try, inshallah ta'ala, since this is an event specifically for Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, we are recognizing our previous Sadran, and of course, Madil Abdullah Sahib for that great speech, mashallah. It's very, very inspiring, very touching. The first national guide that we have for USA, before we started calling it Sadr, was the late Munir Hamid Sahib, most of you would know. He served from 1968 to 1970. And then after him, the second national guide from 1982 to 1986 is sitting on my immediate left. That's Nasir Malik Saab. Jazakumullah for joining us. And then he was followed by Sayyid Sajid Sahib in 1986. And this is when he transitioned from calling them national guide to Sadr Majlis. And he served from 1986 to 1990. And he was followed by Qamar Shams Sahib, who was the first elected Sadr Majlis of USA in 1990. And he served until 1994. And then after him in 1994, Munam Naeem Sahib, who's sitting second to my left, he led the Majlis, Sadr Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya USA from 1994 to 1999. Shakur Ahmad Badr Sahib, who is from Maryland, he wasn't able to join us tonight. He served from 1999 to 2002. And Wasim Sahib then led a Southern Majlis from 2002 to 2006. He was succeeded by Fahim Yunus Qureshi Sahib. Doesn't need an introduction. He served from 2006 to 2010, 2 terms. And then right next to him, in the far end of the table, Sadr Rizwan Aladdin Sahib served from 2010 to 2012. And then he was followed by Bilal Rana Sahib, who became Sadr Majlis in 2012, and you can see him on Zoom, from 2012 to 2018. And then, as we heard, Madil Abdullah Sahib became Sadr Majlis during Huzur's tour in 2018. from 2018 to this year. It's a couple of months ago, 2023. So Jazakumullah to all of these gentlemen. We're being grateful, of course, to Allah Ta'ala for guiding us as Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya through Khilafat. And that's what we want to highlight. So I'll just ask the question and hopefully someone will take the mic and start sharing your experiences. The first question, or more of a comment that you want to make, we have a lot of office bearers here, Qaideen, Nazimin Atfal, Murabbiyan Atfal, and National Amla, Regional Amla members. When we hold sessions like this, it can get a little heavy. There's a lot of responsibility, or you're being asked. Sometimes it could be a little overwhelming. So when you all became Sadr, one of the first things you do is try to meet Khalifatul Masih to get guidance. So I wanted to ask you personally, of course, it must have been a heavy responsibility on your shoulders, but when you go and see Khalifatul Masih's dedication to time, because that's what we're asking, how did that inspire you at first and throughout your service? How has that kept you going in terms of Huzur's dedication to time and how that helped you personally in serving the Majlis? जी जी हमारा नईम साहब this one sir.
Sadr Sahab, my story is very unique and very inspiring. And this happened before I even became Sadr. Qamar Shamad Sahab was Sadr Majlis. Majlis was not financially very strong. Germany held its first national Ijtima in Germany, and they invited the Sadran of all countries to attend that Ijtima. MTA had just started. So Qamar Shamad Sahab approached me, he said, you work for airline. I was, I think, local Qaid, or maybe at that point our Amla was suspended. I was not even a Qaid. But anyways, he said, you can fly free and take Mahmood or take somebody else with you. They can fly free as well. Majlis does not have the funds. So, and nobody else is able to go. I'm not able to go. So you represent me. So I went there. As I was, I arrived there. They, as a reception, they gave me a big badge with the big flower, and it says Sadr Khuddamul MKA USA. I crossed it out and I said representative of. So now at the inauguration time, Hazur is announcing at the MTA live that there are Sadran of all countries that are present here. And he pointed out Sadr Khuddamul MKA USA, Sadr Khuddamul MKA, and I almost just dropped dead over there. And I said, this something is not right. So anyways, I was very worried. I was very worried and panicked. I was very young. So that evening, Hazur had a meeting with all of the representatives that have arrived, you know, from different countries and all that. So as Hazur arrived, I was sitting on the first row. Not that I had a lot of etiquettes and knowledge at that point, how to behave. So as soon as Hazur walked in, I raised my hand like this. But, you know, Hazur looked at me, Hazur came, sat down, and he looked at me, said, जी बोले. मैंने कहा हजूर वो आपने अनाउंस किया था कि सदर खुदामुल MKA USA, that is not right. तो मैं सदर नहीं हूँ. Huzur, you announced that Sadr Khuddamul MKA USA was, but I am not Sadr. And then I pointed out that Huzur ne kaha, who are you then? I said, Huzur, I am a representative. I pointed out towards my badge. Huzur कहते हैं, अच्छा. And Huzur looked at me and stared me for literally for 2-3 minutes. Huzur just keeps staring at me. Then Huzur said, Sadr bhi ban jaoge. And at that point, I did not take that. I thought maybe Hazur consoled me, not thinking that this is Khalifa of God Almighty. God speaks to him. And I just did not realize that at all at that point. I saw Hazur just kind of patted me on the back, said, don't worry about it. You made the mistake and all that. But at that point, you know, 6 months later, there were election of Khuddamul MKA, actually election of Jamaat Houston, and then election of Khuddamul MKA. I was at that point not even National Amla, not in even anything, but this was the words of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih that, you know, just came through. So after that, I realized that what Khalifa has said, what God have told him, that's that's what, matters all the time. So that was it. And then I think we can give other people the opportunity that how my first mulaqat was. In our days, mulaqat was very tough. Hazur was extremely, extremely busy, but I'll give other people opportunities.
So maybe we can keep it to those years. Nasir Malik Saab, you became Sadr in National Qaid in 1982. I don't know how many people were born in the time you became National Qaid, but maybe you want to take us back to those years.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Yes, when we old people talk, we take you back into history. One of Naim Saab had very inspiring story then how he became the Sadr. My situation is just the opposite. I don't know who pushed me into it. I was just a nobody in Michigan, and all of a sudden, I got a letter from Maulana Ataullah Kalim Sahib, who used to be the Amir and missionary in charge of USA, that you have been appointed as the National Qaid Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya. So for most of you perhaps do not know, in those days, there was one international Sadr Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya who used to reside in Rabwa. And Mahmood Bengali Sahib was that Sadr at that time. Each country had a Naib Sadr who was the Amir and missionary in charge of that country. And then they will appoint, I don't know what process they use, but they would appoint somebody to be the National Qaid at that time. So that's how I became the National Qaid. So much so that, mashallah, this is a very wonderful time that we have. We have such a direct access to Allah's representative on this earth. We can listen to him on a weekly basis or more than weekly basis. We can go visit him. Amlas have traveled to visit him and so on. In my time, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis Rahimahullah Ta'ala was the Khalifa. And apart from 1 or 2 personal mulaqat that when I was little kid in Pakistan, I had not heard anything from Khalifa at that time. We would just continue to work. Even in Khalifa Sani's time, he was very sick in latter days of his life. I used to be in Karachi, grew up there. We would not see Hazrat Khuddamul Masih Sani. His Khutbat-e-Jummah would be read from Al-Fazl newspaper by the missionaries, whoever the Imam was. But imagine today, alhamdulillah, what a blessing it is to be able to listen to him. So I would just encourage you to that cherish these times and make most of it. Use them, because the world is yearning for it. We yearn for it. But the first time I met was Khalifa Rabi Rahimahullah Ta'ala, but that was, after my time was over as Khuddamul Ahmadiyya.
Jazakumullah. Maybe someone can take us into that mulaqat room. I'll put you on the spot. Fahim Yunus Quraishi Sahab, you've had those moments of Daftari Mulaqat as Sadr Majlis. How would you describe that environment and what did you learn from them? Any one of them?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To the best of my knowledge, it started back in 2006 and 7 when we started going to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih for an individual mulaqat. And I don't have a light story. It's my first mulaqat lasted about 45 minutes. Prior to that, all my lifetime spent with a Khalifa was less than 45 minutes. So you're a human being. You can get greedy when it comes to certain things. I literally, it's a kid in a candy store. So I come out of that mulaqat and I had a lot of things on my list. And I felt very good, very, very happy. I can't tell you how happy I felt. Just I would look at the clock, and that's all. I could not get out of the paradigm that I spent that much time in that office. And I kid you not, every day since then, I felt bad. Because every day from there on, I realized how broken I was, how inexperienced, how weak, how useless I was, that I wasted 45 minutes of Khalifatul Masih. And I kid you not, I told you it's not an easy story, not a funny story. But alhamdulillah, I've gotten lots of opportunities to meet Hazrat Sahib, and Hazrat Sahib has always been more than gracious. I always use the word parvarish. My father passed away when I was 22. I'm 52 now. I think my father would be very happy to hear that he brought me to this world. He gave me good upbringing, but we were the seed planted by the hands of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabe. And then we were nurtured, and whatever fruit came was due to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis. But the point I'm making is now I don't want to waste a minute of Hazrat Sahib's time. I go to London, I do mulaqat, I'm expecting 3 minutes. All my questions are answered. There's rarely a question that I feel I need to ask. And I just feel like I need to get back to work. I go there, I want to request for prayers. I want to be in his company, but it's strange how you reach a saturation point. I look back at that kid who was Sadr Khuddamul Ahmadiyya back in 2006. But shukr alhamdulillah, but I'll just tell you, you're going to see a lot of TikTok influencers. You're going to see people with millions of followers. You're going to see people who say something in the world just becomes a bumper sticker. This is the real deal. I cannot emphasize the point enough.
Allahu Akbar.
And I'm telling you, there was a time in my life I would have checked out. Because we're human beings, we're human systems. There are micro frustrations in every system. I was 20 years old, was full of hormones, and I would have checked out. I was that frustrated. But what kept me in was Khalif Masih Rabe. May Allah Ta'ala bless his sweet soul. What kept me in was the books of Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. Because to me, that's the commentary of Quran. The more you read those books, you feel like Masih Maud Salam is just explaining Quran. What kept me in is Khalif Masih Khamis. So sometimes we get into this fan club. I'm going to use that term because that's how I feel. There's only one fan club in this Jamaat, and that is Khilafat. As youth, you are prone to that. Don't go for fan club. In this Jamaat, anyone who brings you closer to Khilafat, yes, that's good, right? That's just a conduit. But there's no party, there's no group. That is the one club we all follow. And I tell my own children, because we're human beings, tomorrow, 2 circuits, 2 neurons in my brain can go off. So I tell my children something I'm going to tell you. If a time comes where you see me saying one thing and Khalifatul, and this is more apt for my children because they can be influenced by parents. I say, look, if Baba says one thing and Hazrat Sahib says another, you got to do what Hazrat Sahib does. That day you don't follow Baba or Amma for that matter. And I'm going to tell you the same thing. If you do that, you'll keep growing. But going back to that room, again, it's the real deal. That's all I can tell you. We've seen the world. You'll see these sort of gatherings at your workplace. As Allah Ta'ala grants you, as you get into the boardrooms, you'll see more and more. You'll be in rooms where billion-dollar decisions will be made. And I can guarantee you, this is my trust with this Jamaat, you'll reflect that moment and you say, this is the real room. This is the real deal.
Jazakumullah. Rizwan Al-Adid Sahab. Everyone's experiences can be a little different. When the responsibility starts hitting you, you look at all the youth, now you have to lead them. You're told that you're their Sadr. How did you start to internalize that? And how would you describe that? And then going into mulaqat, trying to understand that role as a leader.
Thank you for inviting me to this. I think that this brother here next to me, I don't know if he remembers the election of Sadr that year. When the election happened, I really didn't think that that my name would reach to that level. My father passed away last year, but I kid you not, I don't think I cried more except for that day when that election happened. And I just had felt like, how am I going to go do this? I was distraught, that this is not, I'm not that type of person who can take on that responsibility. And alhamdulillah, had served the Jamaat in many different capacities, but for some reason, that thought of being a Southern Majlis was just something that was not within my means. So that's how it happened, that moment when that happened. For some reason, I can't remember now, my parents were, I believe, in India, and they were traveling back to the US, and they had already planned to have a mulaqat with Huzur. And so in that time frame that, the approval came, and then they were on their way back, they went to mulaqat with Huzur, and in that mulaqat, my mother said that, our son is very nervous. He's distraught. And he said, "Unko keh de mujhe mil kar aaye." Tell him to come and see me. And so there I felt like, wow, I got my ticket now. I mean, this is now, the Khalifatul Masih has asked me to come. And so, and I think that built up tension. Huzur had this way of just diffusing it when you go and you meet with him. He was the most gracious with his time. He gives you, he wants to make sure your list is done. But he was, beloved Huzur was just so assuring me that you can do this. And, if there's one word of advice, and it probably comes up a little bit in the game that we had today, he said to me, probably the first few sentences he said to me is, Sadr Saab, one day a week you have to spend with your family. One weekend a month you have to spend with your family. And you must take at least a week's vacation with your family a year. So it was, so Sadr Saab, that's I assume that unless it's been changed since then, Sadr will come after me. But if Huzur hasn't changed that, that is one thing that Huzur had, I still remember, and my wife reminded me of, but Huzur had that way, his presence of cooling us down. So alhamdulillah for that.
Jazakallah. Bilal Rana Saab, can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Yes, I can hear you.
I think a lot of Khuddam sitting here would remember when the trip started to London. What was going through your mind? Why did you feel the need to take Khuddam and Atfal in those large numbers to London to meet Khalifatul Masih? What inspired that?
Well, the trip started many decades before. We were just reviving an old tradition that was maybe lost or forgotten. And Khuddamul Ahmadiyya has everything to do with Khilafat, and without it, it loses complete meaning, complete guidance. It loses all flavor, and so we had to go. And look at Khilafat without this, and I think we're seeing this now, especially today, as world events unfold. We see that everything is taking off its mask, and we see things for the lies that they are. People that we followed, that we believed in, celebrities, musicians, talking heads, corporations, and they don't have the courage or integrity to speak the truth. And, even mainstream media and trusted voices, politicians, it's all false. And everybody's pretending. And even, the mainstream is beginning to see this as the face of Dajjal, in fact. And in contrast, you have the Masih and his representative in this age, shining bright. And that's all you need. And there isn't anything else that is even necessary, that we have to, even look in ourselves or anything. We have simply just to follow. It's really that easy. And reflecting back on my mulaqats, I'm filled with a tremendous amount of embarrassment. And I because of, I see some lack of maturity in myself at that age. And I used to think that it was maybe perhaps age, but actually I think it's not really age. You can have refined understanding of Khilafat at a young age. Doesn't have to necessarily do with age. The recognizing the status of Khilafat is something that's very important, and something that I lacked, or I see in myself looking back those years that I lacked. So we should all question whether we really truly understand the status of Khilafat. Because in our relationship with Khilafat is a reflection of our relationship with God. And when we understand the status of Allah Almighty, then we begin to understand how small and how helpless and how needy we are. And this is reflected in our relationship with our Khalifa. And you see it in nature, you see it in, shepherds have their flock, beehives follow a queen. We see this organization in life, the similitude, and we have simply just to follow it. So it was an honor. But I'll add something also, that there's no reason to be too impressed with myself or anyone on this panel who has served as a Sadr per se, although it's a privilege and we're grateful for that. But your love and attachment to Khilafat and your loyalty to Hazur has nothing to do with what rank or office you hold. And I was reminded of this when a couple years ago, Hazur did the obituary sermon of Sayyid Tale Ahmed Shaheed. Sayyid Tale Ahmed was do you know what his rank in the Majlis was? He was a Naib Nazim Khidmat-e-Khalq for Atfal. That was his office. He was not a Qaid. He was not a national Amma member or a national Naib, whatever. He was just a simple, and beyond that, he was, even in his work at MTA, the man behind the camera, the one who was trying to capture other people in the spotlight. And even according to his poem, he did not have that kind of relationship openly that sometimes we see and admire others for having with Hazur. The direct relationship, the direct personal and zati, very personal and comfortable relationship that we sometimes admire and wish we had. But he had a very secret and private love for Hazur, which he felt that Hazur probably has no idea. But Hazur said that in his Friday sermon that he had every idea and he knew all along. And even if he didn't, Allah Ta'ala knows. And Allah Ta'ala can bless the love we have for Khilafat. So that's all I have to say, I think. Jazakallah.
Khilafat-e Ahmadiyya
Zindabad.
Shuhada-e Ahmadiyya
Zindabad.
Inni Ma'aka
Ya Masroor.
Inni Ma'aka
Ya Masroor.
MTA
Zindabad.
Nara Takbir.
Allahu Akbar. I think what you mentioned also, Bilal Rana Sahab, sometimes we, as Sadran, you come up with the great plan, your Amla thinks over it, and then you sit in front of Khalifatul Masih, and then one guidance, you think, wow, what just happened? Did you have any of those, alhamdulillah, moments that maybe you want to share to see the inside, spiritual inside of Khalifatul Masih while he was guiding you, completely different from what you were thinking? Was it that difficult?
I have an alhamdulillah moment, but it's more of a story.
Gigi, please.
So I'll try to speed it up. It can be long. It's 2006. A lot of anti-Muslim sentiment in America post 9/11. Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, Ayyadullah bin Nasr al-Aziz, was scheduled to come to US last minute. Trip got rescheduled, cancelled. I was serving Naib Sadr. Naseem Wasim Saab was the Sadr. So that's the background. For 10 years, a Khalifa hasn't traveled to America. Then 2008, Hazrat Saab plans to come. Many of the faces here, some of them were there. But there was a lot of trepidation because American land has not seen a Khalifa for 10 years. It's post 9/11 first visit. Khuddamul Ahmadiyya is weak. The Sadr is weaker. And now we have to figure this out. The amount of rumors was incredible. 2 days to Hazrat Saab's takeoff, and I'm getting phone calls that Hazur's trip is canceled. The members in my Amla who saw dreams, not good dreams. Their Hazrat Saab's plane was in the air. I knew for sure. And a member of my Amla is coming to me and saying, Sadr Saab, do you know the trip got canceled? I know for sure the plane is in the air. So you imagine, this is the background. I'm right here in Baitur Rahman, Khurram Bashir Saab sitting there. Hazur's plane is about to land in 4 hours and we lose water in Masjid Baitur Rahman, something that has never happened, at least to my knowledge. In all of this chaos, now we have to go receive Hazrat Saab from the airport. Sadr Khuddamul Ahmadiyya is traditionally in the lead car of the Kafla. And now it starts raining. So you cannot imagine, the immature Fahim Yunus Qureshi back then. All I'm doing is just istighfar and durood in my head. I'm not even making eye contact from anyone. And I'm thinking, people keep telling me, you know what? Sadr Saab, you're going to take care of security. And every time they come and say, I'm like, what do I know? We are on 495. The Kafla is going and I'm literally praying that Allah Ta'ala, I'm seeing these clouds. So Allah Ta'ala, at least remove the clouds so the plane won't be going through a bumpy landing. Literally, that's going through my head. And as we make a turn on 495, the clouds, it's not a story of my acceptance of prayers, by the way, not at all. It's a story of how Allah turns fear into peace with Khilafat. So we make one turn and there's a break in the cloud. And 495 is curvy, there are lots of turns and curves. We make another turn and now there's a rainbow coming all through those clouds. Now the poet in me, the analogies, right? I'm thinking, wow, there's a rainbow, everything's gonna be fine, right? Again, you're a little child deep inside. What happened next was a little more dramatic. We make 2 more turns and now there's a double rainbow. At least in my life, I had never seen that vivid of a double rainbow until that day. Something deep down gave me peace. We went, Khalifatul Masih landed, Hazrat Saab came. And from there on, the next 12, 14, 15, whatever the time was, the most beautiful time. Everybody forgot their fear. Everything went as beautiful as you can imagine. Until the day of departure. Right here in Baitur Rahman, I kid you not, it starts raining in the morning. To the point that right here, Hazrat Saab's house was right here in the masjid. We were debating whether Hazur will walk or will come in a car. After Fajr, around 10 a.m., Hazur was going to take a plane to Canada. It was a charter plane. As we get to 10 o'clock, the rain stops. As the Kafla gets on 495, clouds break. See, they say you can transfer knowledge, but you cannot transfer wisdom. You can share data points, but you cannot share miracles. That was a personal miracle for me because of the fear that was building up to that visit. As we are on 495, we see one rainbow. On our visit back, Hazrat Saab is going back. As we make 2 more turns, we see the second rainbow. And my phone goes off with texts from Khuddam who are in the rest of the Kafla. Sadr Saab, did you see that? Sadr Saab, we didn't have to say anything to anyone. People in that Kafla witnessed something. And then we went to the airport. There were not a drop of rain. Hazrat Saab got on the plane. And that day, in my own way, I witnessed how Allah Ta'ala turns your state of fear into state of peace through Khilafat.
Can I please. Please. Jazakallah, it's beautiful.
Jazakallah, Fahim bhai. On one hand, Fahim Saab was getting worried on the ground, and I have been given the responsibility to arrange all the travel arrangement for Hazur, right? So all the travels and all that. So this goes back to 2000, 13, 2 or 3 things happened. Very, just very inspiring to me as well. 2013, we had arranged for Hazur to go to Canada and come back through connecting to Chicago and then go back to London. That was how the flight was laid out. And the weather was bad. The aircraft that was assigned from Calgary to Chicago was a smaller airplane. And here I'm checking at the midnight time frame. My ops center is telling me that flight most likely is going to be canceled. And I'm so worried about that. And weather in Chicago is turning bad as well. And it is possible that if you make it from that flight, the next flight will be canceled also. Here we are in Canada, and I did not sleep that night, praying, writing to Private Secretary Saab that I'm really worried that if something happens, what are my backup plans? What will happen in Calgary? Okay, fine. But what if we get in Chicago? That was a connecting flight only. I slept maybe for 30 minutes, and I've been keep checking the weather, bad. Believe me, 30 minutes of 45 minutes that I slept, I woke up and I start to see weather getting clear. And anyways, the flight boards on time, flight leaves, and we go to the airport. And as we walk into the airport, I tell this to Hazur. And I said, Hazur, I didn't sleep all night. I've been praying, and हम लोग वरी करते रहते हैं, आप खलीफा हैं और आपका जो काम है अल्लाह ताला कर देता है. So Hazur grabbed my hand and Hazur listened to me for a few minutes and grabbed my hand. And in that lounge, he took me on the side, and Hazur sat me down for almost 30 minutes, 40 minutes by myself. And just talked so many things. It was just inspiring for me. And similarly, on this other travel arrangement that we were making the immigration arrangement for Hazur to come out through the front top gates from Chicago. The Port Authority was not going to open the door. When Hazur arrived, we came to the British Airways lounge, and the immigration officer looked at Hazur, and she pulled me on the side. He said, for this man, I will open any doors, anything. And she opened the top doors where the cars were parked, and we went out straight there. And one last item that I will share also, when we were traveling from here to Canada, this was, I think, 2013. I think Fahim Saab, maybe you were part of that, or somebody was, maybe Rizwan Al-Ladin Saab was part of that. If you remember, when we were traveling and we had to pull over for lunch, at that point, it was so raining so bad, but the time car stopped, rain disappeared. We went into the Applebee. We had a lunch there. Applebee is a franchise. They would not allow you to do anything, but they were so inspired. They told us to go ahead, move all the table, and made the prayer arrangements and everything. And that we prayed there behind Hazur in the Applebee, which is franchise. And after that, now we are worried that it's raining. How would Hazur go to the car? And we have umbrellas ready, if you remember that. Hazur walked through, no rain, and we went on to Canada.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Ji, Rizwan bhai. MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
Since we're talking about airplane stories, I might as well throw in couple things. So I'll be brief. When my first visit to meet Hazur, the plane was getting delayed, and my mulak, I would leave from New York on a Friday night. I didn't have that many vacation days. So I was trying to be very conservative. So my mulaqat was on Saturday morning. So I left on a Friday night, and the plane got delayed. So first of all, I was worried, am I going to make it there in time for this mulaqat? Here's my first mulaqat. I was asking some people here, and they were saying, oh, tell Hazur that, you'll be late, you can move it and this and that. And I think you had told me, don't say anything, just let it go. And so I appreciate that. On that plane, I don't know what it was. I felt like the plane was, Allah Ta'ala was pushing it along. It just felt like so turbulent. Like you feel that rush as going through. And alhamdulillah, I was just praying the entire time. Allah Ta'ala made it such that I got there, just in time, but like I was not late, and I was able to have the mulaqat with Hazur. So in the mulaqat with Hazur, Hazur was asking me, so what's your next plan and this and that. And I said, Hazur, I'll be here, and I'm going to say my Asr namaz. Then I have my flight back to New York. So Hazur got quiet. He goes, Acha. I said, Aap aaj hi ja rahe hain? I said, Ji Hazur, I came to see you. I have no other plan here. He goes, okay. And so he just, and so I flew back. And so every time I had a mulaqat with Huzur after that, he'd always say, so I guess you're going back tonight. So when he came to Chicago in 2012, he landed in Chicago. The first time I met him when he came out through the security, he met me first, and he goes, Sadr Sahab, मैं आपके तरह एक दिन में नहीं आ सकता हूँ. I can't come back and forth in one day like you. So I'm going to stay for a couple of weeks. I hope you don't mind. So I said, geez, wait, I'm so happy about that. So
That's amazing. So Ahmadiyya Abdullah Sahab, Alhamdulillah, we hosted Huzur in 2018, and then in 2022, you have mashallah, in a short period of time, it was a very unique experience, must have been for you. How was that for you the first time and then the second time? What growth did you see, and what kind of an experience was it for you?
Gee, so 2018, when Hazur appointed me as Sadr, it was unexpected for me, and I think a lot of you have heard the story, but I remember the first day that I was Sadr was a Friday night. It was a Friday. And Friday evening, there was actually a wedding for Tala Chaudhry Sahab. And he's right there. So I remember specifically, Hazur was sitting here, and I was sitting where Zadok is sitting. And next to Zadok was the private secretary Sahab, where Salam is sitting. And I was very anxious. And I can imagine Hazur maybe saw that anxiety, because within a few minutes after dinner was finished, Hazur called the private secretary Sahab over, and he said, tell Sadr Sahab that I'm going to meet him tomorrow at 11 a.m. on Saturday. So I think Hazur saw that anxiety, that anxiousness I had of unexpectedly becoming Sadr. And Hazur sat me down on Saturday at 11 a.m. I still remember. And it was a 45-minute malakat. And I remember I maybe said a handful of words, the entire malakat. And Hazur went through the Amla one by one, asked about who the Amla members were. Hazur gave me very specific instructions on how to hold the Ijtima, how the Jamaat and the Majlis should work together. Hazur used a specific analogy of if you think of a cart that has 4 wheels on it, one wheel is the Jamaat, one wheel is the Lajna Imala, one is Khuddamul Ahmadiyya, one is Ansarullah. If any of those wheels is not aligned correctly, it's a very, the ride is very, it's a crooked ride. It's not an easy ride. But if all the wheels work together, it's a very smooth ride. So Hazur went one by one, and I felt, I was a child at that point, and my father was giving me instructions down to the nitty-gritty of how we should do things within the majlis. So, if anybody saw me who left the malakat that day, that anxiety that I had, I felt like it was relieved. Alhamdulillah, I have my marching orders now. I know what to do. That really relieved my anxiety.
Jazakumullah. When they were talking about airplanes, I remember the story when I went to, it was in 2018, I went to Jalsa UK, and Bilal Abdul Salam Sahab of Philadelphia, he was with us in that, and then during Jalsa, he got sick, and he was admitted. It was very bad. We thought we were going to lose him. But somehow he recovered in a very miraculous way. So he came to Masjid Fazal, and he was standing in the crowd. When Huzur was going into Masjid Fazal, you can imagine the crowd at that time. Huzur changes direction, walks straight to him, and then asks him, how are you doing? And he talks to him for a little bit. So I had my mulaqat the day before I was supposed to come back. And I was living in Baltimore then. My flight was to Baltimore. So in my mulaqat, Huzur asked me, how is Bilal Abdul Salam Sahib? I said, yeah, he's fine. Now he's recovered. And then Huzur goes to me, take him home. And then I was thinking to myself, he lives in Philadelphia. I live in Baltimore. And then I said, Huzur, actually, I'm leaving tomorrow. And then Huzur goes quiet. So I went to Tafshir and I told him, Huzur said this, does it mean I should change my flight? They said, no, don't worry, it's okay, you can go. So the next day, I got my flight. My flight was supposed to go to Manchester and then come here. I fly to Manchester. When I get there for my connecting flight, they told me they couldn't find my ticket in the system. So they were looking my confirmation number, my email, everything. They said, this ticket has disappeared. We cannot find it. It's impossible. I said, come on, what is that? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, and I'm in Manchester with my luggage and everything. I said, I'm stuck here. What do I do? So they said to me, well, let's try to see what we can figure out. They went, the supervisor came, people are going up and down trying to find my ticket. They just couldn't find it. So they said to me, okay, we'll give you some options. You can stay here overnight. We'll send you to a hotel. Now the mission house from there was about a 20-minute ride. I said, I'm okay, I'll just go to. And then they give me a ticket, a new ticket. This ticket, the flight was going to Philadelphia. And they said, not from Manchester, they said, we'll fly you back to London, right? Back to London, and then we'll give you a flight to Philadelphia. I was like, okay, that's fine. Then I said, well, when they do that, let me see what happens. They give me a confirmation, I kid you not. I go back to London. I check the flight details of Bilal Abdul Salam Sahib. It was the same day, and I was sitting next to him. And I took him home. I literally got to Philadelphia and I held his hand. I took him all the way to his door, and I opened the door. He sat down. Then I came home with Azhar Hanif Saab to Baltimore. So this was just so, it was unbelievable for me. So alhamdulillah, I thought I would share that. So my next question,
That's like a drop, mic drop.
So let me go back a little bit to the gentleman who maybe when you were National Card, we talk about all these moments with Khalifatul Masih. We were just talking to just a few moments ago, how now we enjoy so much time. One of Naeem Saab was saying that we never used to think about Daftari Mulakat. Nasir Malik Saab was saying Khalifa Rabi used to be so busy, we wouldn't even think about Daftari Mulakat. So you as a Sadr, maybe you would hear from Khalifatul Masih not so often. How did that feel like? But you were still connected to Khilafat. How did you maintain that connection?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I honestly don't know how the direct one-on-one connection is, because in those days, those opportunities were not there. But I do tell you, in 1983, second year of my tenure, I was in Michigan. Dr. Muzaffar got martyred. And in that year, we had planned to host the National Jalsa Salana. And everything was set. We were so happy that, we are hosting as Michigan, the first Jalsa Salana in Michigan. It was in Oakland University. It was all set. And Monday night, the martyrdom happened. As a result of that, everything changed overnight. The media got the wind of it, and they had all sorts of stories that this was some internal tussle between these groups in Ahmadiyya and all that sort of thing. That spooked the university authorities. They said, we don't know what's behind this shooting. We cannot take a chance with our students. So we're going to cancel your contract. You cannot hold the Jalsa there. So that was very worrisome. And we had, hundreds of people planning to come, and it was all set. So of course, we responded to and sought guidance from Hazrat Khalifatul Masih through Maulana Ta'ala Kaleem Sahib, who was the immediate missionary in charge. And Huzur gave the instruction that Jalsa must happen. And I don't know how, but it did happen. We didn't have a full Friday, Saturday, Sunday program. It was a one-day Jalsa. And somehow overnight, we got the energy. Detroit was a very small Jamaat. They were able to get together. I see Munawar Khan Saab's son sitting here, that he was instrumental in that, Mukarram Khan and so on and so forth. We were able to cook food. We held the Jalsa in a park. If you happen to see some old pictures, you can see that it was an open air kind of Jalsa held, and everybody showed up. So that was miraculous, that how without meeting Huzur, we were seeing how Huzur's words and his his desire was like a command that Jalsa must go on, and Alhamdulillah, it did happen.
Assalamu alaikum. Like to share a couple of stories. Of course, you know, we didn't have as many daftari mulaqats, but I did have opportunity. So I'm going to give you some facts. You know, the current translation of the English, the pledge that we recite. So at that point, when I became Sadr, we did not have a consolidated translation. So we were compiling the constitution all over again. So I got the translation from UK that was different. USA had a different translation. Canada had a different translation. So anyway, I went to London and you know, had a mulaqat with Hazur, and I mentioned to him, and we were looking at the translation, and there was a word, Khalifa Waqt jo bhi maroof faisla farmayenge. So Khalifatul Masih Rabi told me there is no English translation for word maroof. And so the translation was then done, and the word maroof got left in there. So for that point, that kind of became the standard translation in English that was utilized all across the world. So I had that experience with Hazur in that sense. But I'll give you another, that how patient the Khalifa Waqt is. It was 1991. I was very young, Khadim like you all. Hazur was going to fly from Mexico to Guatemala. And so I was young also, we were there. This is 1991, I think. So when we boarded the flight, I was non-rev. Non-rev means there was a riding on the free ticket, right? So we were the last one to get the seats there. But anyways, so when we boarded, this was all economy configuration. Hazur was sitting on the window, and the next two seats with Hazur was nobody was sitting. No Kafla member was willing to sit with Hazur, right? So I was obviously there. So Major Saab told me, go sit with Hazur. So I said, okay. So I sat down right next to Hazur, and then I think Fazal Alai Kamar Saab from Spain, he was next to me. Long behold, I was just a Qaid. And I'm thinking, oh, I still feel guilty. I still feel that how stupid that I was at that point. And I'm traveling with Hazur, and as soon as the flight takes off, and you know, I start to talk to Hazur, then I take my bag out and I start showing Hazur all of the Majlis activities. I show him, Hazur, this is our first local Ijtima, and throughout the flight, and you know, and then later on, Major Saab told me that you should have let Hazur rest it. But Hazur was so patient, and Hazur listened to me. And I even told Hazur that I'm listening to your question and answer sessions, and I have this tape recorder that does 1.5x speed. So and Hazur is looking at me, 1.5x speed. I'm listening to your question answer session because I want to listen more and more. And I'm going to cover. Hazur is not saying this. And Hazur then, so Hazur said, okay, fine. He's just talking to me. And then Hazur takes out his camera. I said, most likely you would like to have a photograph also. So Hazur stands up and makes our video sitting next to him. It was so motivational, all that in there.
Very inspiring. There's a lot of office bearers sitting here. Sometimes we, Qaideen, you have high expectations of your amla. The workload gets on you. You kind of push that frustration, or we do it, you know, in office bearers. But you as Sadran, of course, your job is difficult. We like to think it's difficult, except we sit in front of Khalifatul Masih. How did you observe the patience of Khalifatul Masih with you as Sadran Majlis? Like you've all said, or we were younger or inexperienced, or Hazur was patient. What did you learn from that, and how did that help you? And Bilal, you want to come in as well after?
I don't know about the other esteemed panelists here, but it was during his visit here that we had fireworks actually take place.
Wow.
I'm not happy about it, by the way. So when Hazur visited, was staying here, some of our I guess enemies, you know, opposition to Hazur's visit here, they came and they dropped off a box of fireworks in front of the MTA house, and they went off. And you know, by the time our security get over there to see what it was, they drove off. Some of you may remember this incident who were here at that time. It was, you know, and it was, I mean, I first of all, just utter fear, right? That how am I, you know, is Hazur safe, you know, and my wives went to the Hazur's home because I didn't know what it was exactly. I saw fireworks, but you hear little shots. You have the worst. Alhamdulillah, we were able to figure out that the masjid itself, the compound was safe. It was just that something happened outside. But to your point, there's more I can tell to the story. But to your point about patience, two things that I learned. First of all, afterwards, and maybe the next day, we're walking back from the masjid to Hazur's residence, and Hazur just turns to me to the side, says, "So this aaj tak koi patake nahi hone wale, right?" So Hazur's patience that this was a breach in our security, and in his loving way, he didn't like a father, he just showed great love and patience because I was so nervous. And the other part of it, I'm drawing a blank. There was something else. Yes, the other part of it is that Tal Quddus Sahib told me that Hazur had mentioned to him that he was impressed at least that the Khuddam weren't running around when that happened. They maintained their demeanor. So something for all of us to remember, that sometimes when these crises happen, it's a time to go and take a breath and just take in the situation and not create more mayhem.
Ji, Bilal, you want to add to that?
And G, so can you repeat the question? Is it about
I'm
patience or
saying
security?
that office bearers, sometimes we offload our pressure onto other office bearers that we are working with as a guide, maybe on your amla. But you as Sadr, how do you observe Huzur's patience with you, even at times maybe when your lack of inexperience made you say or do certain things, and Huzur kept calm and guided you? Patience.
Oh, right, incredible patience and grace, and you have to actually be really attuned to Huzur, because very subtle. Although he may be smiling and being kind to you, the message could actually be a lesson hidden in the kindness. Of course, he's being kind, and all lessons are also as a form of kindness, also, of course. But there's many times that we've been corrected, and the thing is that we should be, as Khuddam and office holders, in the habit of being able to accept humbly the lesson and to apologize. I'll use an example here. It's a private sitting here tonight. When Hazur came in 2018 to Houston, it was during the handoff term when Sadr Dr. Mudil Abdullah Sahab was going to take over. But just prior to that, when I was still serving, I was noticing that the crowd around Khalifatul Masih during his walks was getting very crowded, and it was getting too relaxed, and people were getting too comfortable, getting too close to Hazur, and the Qafla was already enough people, and it's this thing that we can't stay back, we want to be close to Hazur, and some of us maybe feel entitled, we are allowed to get closer, whatever, for whatever reason. Ultimately, Majlis Khuddamul Ahmadiyya is responsible for the security of Khalifatul Masih on these trips. And the Sadr Majlis is foremost responsible, including the security during the walk. And I had to admit that I had a lapse, and what happened was it got so crowded that Hazur's private secretary fell, tripped, and scraped his knees, and Hazur stopped and had turned and regarded Private Secretary Saab, and he had to be medically treated on site. He was okay, but it could have been far worse. And this is administratively the right hand of Khalifatul Masih. It's very sensitive on tours, and I say this because the stakes are so high that security, it has so many different angles. We all often think about external factors, but there's internal factors, and the work can directly affect Khalifatul Masih. And so I would visit him every night, and he would get his bandages changed, Private Secretary Saab, and he was very forbearing, but I apologized to him, and I apologized in writing to Khalifatul Masih as well. Even though, it wasn't asked, but it's obvious that one should own your mistakes and accept your responsibility, and don't make defenses or excuses. And then that very night, after having spoken with the Misab, there were new instructions which we gave to the Amla and everyone else that would try to jump on those walks to not do so, and that we would limit, who would walk with Hazur. So just one small example of Hazur's patience and forgiveness and forbearance with our mistakes.
Jazakumullah. We just last couple of questions. Who do I throw this to? Fahim Yunusab, I'll come to you then. Madil Abdullah Sab, I'll come to you next. Did it feel lonely sometimes serving as Sadr Majlis?
Yeah, I think it's a very lonely job, but that is where you gotta fill that void with Allah Ta'ala, because no one else can help you. There's no point venting. Very soon you realize venting doesn't work. Very soon you realize in terms of help, other than Khalifatul Masih, really there is no one who can give you that level of clarity. But I think part of maturity, Hazrat Muslim Maud has said that when you're young and you're immature, you trust more of your interventions. You trust more of tadbir. And as you become more mature in your spirituality, you trust more in prayer. The word dua, again, Hazrat Muslim Maud one place has said that it cannot lose its potency, because sometimes people use it casually, dua mein yaad rakhe. And Khulafa have not appreciated that. Don't cheapen the word dua. It's something very sacred. It's something very, very hard. So yes, Sab, to answer your point, it's a lonely job, but I think growth happens in that loneliness. It's necessary. Hazur will tell you all the right things, but if it's worth anything, be prepared for that loneliness. But the beauty is, I can speak for this man right here, and he can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I can speak for myself. The person that enters the tunnel is not the person that comes out of the tunnel. That is just guaranteed. Whether you change the majlis or not is not the goal. Like now when I reflect, I think the goal was just to work on this broken piece. Rest, Allah was going to take care of it anyway. Khalifatul Masih didn't need me. So that's in essence how I feel.
Ji, Nasir Malik sir wants to add to that.
Talk about loneliness and magnanimity of the Khalifa. I was not National Qaid at that time. I was the president of Detroit Jamaat. So Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah Ta'ala visited Detroit in 1987. We didn't have a mosque. We didn't have a mission house in those days. So the arrangements we made with Maulana Sheikh Mubarak Sahib, he was the immediate mission in charge, concurrence and approval, that Huzur and his Kafla will stay in one house. And by context, our house, my house, was used as a center of the Jamaat for more than 2 years or so. We were holding our meetings and so on and so forth because the place we had bought caught fire, so we could not meet there anymore. So we were meeting in our home. So the arrangement was that Huzur will lead prayers in my house and then have Mehfil Irfan there at Isha time and do mulaqat in that house for the guests. So it was Friday night. Huzur gave that historic khutbah in Detroit. I would encourage you to listen to it in 1987. And Friday night was this program of Mehfil Irfan and so on. And Saturday was a public event to lay the foundation stone of the new mission house. So obviously that was on my nerves as the president of the Jamaat, that we need to make sure that tomorrow's public event goes smoothly, because Friday night event was happy, namaz happened and Huzur was just, in his peak, doing the Mehfil Irfan, and he was having fun. He used to get energy out of that. And Private Secretary Saab asked me that you should ask Huzur to stop the Mehfil Irfan. I said, Private Secretary Saab, how can I ask? You should ask. You should give, give him some tips. He said, no, you should do that. And I was so dumb and innocent at that time. I said, okay, that's my responsibility. So be it. So I requested Huzur, it's getting late. We have very small Jamaat, and tomorrow we have a lot of things to do. So if we stay up late, tomorrow's program is going to be affected. So Huzur smiled. He said, so you want me to get out of your house? You want me to kick me out? I said, no, absolutely not, Huzur. We'll sit here all night. So Huzur just cut short the thing. He had maybe 1 or 2 questions after that, and then he decided to leave. Next day, my wife was on Lajna duty to serve Huzur lunch or something. So she got the courage to ask Huzur, Huzur, please forgive my husband. He doesn't know any better. He asked you to leave and so on. So Huzur was so gracious. He said, no, not at all. I know where he was coming from. So there was no big deal. So Huzur was so patient and so loving that, he knew that, we are doing some things out of dumbness, innocence, or what have you. But we do mean ultimate respect for the Khalifa of the time and obedience to the Khalifa of the time.
Adil Abdullah Sahab, when Huzur said that he saw loyalty in Khuddam of USA, how did you take that message? What did that mean to you? And what message do you have for Khuddam to kind of understand what that responsibility is for Huzur to say those kind words about us as a Majlis in USA?
So, before Huzur's tour last year, there was a lot of, concern whether Majlis Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya could do the proper security duty to protect Huzur. And even, before Huzur came here, myself and a few other people went to visit Huzur, and Huzur's mentioned a few times that, different, Sadrs, different Sadran from different countries are writing to me saying that, we can send 100 Khuddam from our country to help you, to help guard you during your tour to the US. So Huzur's mentioned it a few times, and it was a concern, and I was receiving calls about this that, are you ready to do this duty? And it was a tense time, and I felt like I was not prepared enough, and I would write to Huzur, seek Huzur's guidance, and I would speak to Amir Sahib about this as well on a regular basis. And alhamdulillah, during the Huzur's tour, there were no major issues. And, afterwards, Huzur, appreciated this. And, that love that Huzur has shown us, it's a very particular love. And if you think about it, we have someone that cares for us, that loves us, that prays for us. No one else has this. Just one incident during the tour, just to show how much concern that Huzur has for each of us. There was, as far as the accommodations for our volunteers go, we weren't doing a very good job with our accommodations. There was delays in the hotel rooms. There were a lot of issues there. So on the last week of the tour, as we were, Huzur was taking a look at the guest houses, and we were at the Blue Guest House across the street. And as soon as we came on the deck, I would generally walk in front of Huzur, and I was a little ahead of Huzur, and Huzur called me. And at that point, it was just Huzur and myself on the deck. Nobody else was there. Everyone else was still inside the house. And Huzur said to me that, we should take better care of the volunteers. Sometimes they get the hotel accommodations late. And to me, it was an embarrassing moment for me because I wasn't doing a good job taking care of the volunteers. But then it showed me multiple things. Number one, how much love does Hazur have for each of us, for the volunteers that are here, that we need to make sure that their accommodations are taken care of. And two, Hazur didn't want to embarrass me either. So there were many times during the walk where Hazur could have said something, but people were listening. This was the only time at that moment where nobody else was listening. So even in a time of reprimand, for me, it was done privately. So, this love and patience that we have from Khalifatul Masih, I think we are so lucky to have this.
Inshallah. I'd love to continue, but I'm also looking at the clock. Thank you. Maybe we have to end it here, but Mr. In charge, Saab, before we end, and I would request you to lead us in dua. If you want to share any few words of advice to the Khuddam, again, it's a big responsibility for hearing all of these servants of Khuddamul Ahmadiyya who inshallah will continue to serve the Jamaat, and may Allah give them the opportunity to continue to serve in many, many ways. Sure, they're all serving. If I start, listing the offices they still hold or the different capacities they're serving in, I'm sure everyone sees them and sees all the work that's happening. It's an honor to have all of you share some private moments, some fun moments, guidance, prayers, concerns, and of course your love for the Majlis. I'll request you all to keep the Majlis in your prayers. Inshallah, we'll continue to seek your experiences, your guidance in any way that you want to help me, our Amla members, our Qaideen, in your local Jamaats, during tea time, anytime, we'll always receive all that wisdom and all those experiences, inshallah ta'ala. So now, Mir Sahib, I'll request you to please.
In closing, let us take these moments to express gratitude. I was joking with our former Sadr Sahib here during the dinner. I said, Sadr Sahib, didn't they honor you during the Khuddam Ijtima? He said, yes. I said, and didn't they honor you during the Shura? He said, yes. I said, so this is a triple play right now. And then I said, this is the Last Supper. It doesn't end well. But honestly, there's a very simple expression. Man la yashkur nas, la yashkur Allah. You look on this head table here, none of these gentlemen sitting here asked to be Sadr. As you've heard their humble expressions, they all wanted to run from the position, just like the Anbiya when they're chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They all want to run and hide and bury themselves with the onerous duty that is suddenly thrust on their shoulders, as has been very well expressed by all of them. And anyone up here would tell you the same thing. No one wants it. The Holy Prophet Muhammad said, never ask for it. And when it's given to you, you feel the crushing weight of it until the last moment you're relieved of it. And then you should thank the person who was taking up that huge weight that is off of your shoulders and on theirs, or whatever time that was. And the only way we can thank them, like thanking our parents, is in prayer. The praise is great. The plaque will collect dust pretty soon. You'll stick it in a box. But the prayers continue in this life and next to bless these gentlemen for their great services for whatever time Allah put them in the position. And I say whatever time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them in a position. Because in the end, when we know, we elect them, Hazur then approves them, and they serve. I'm humbly honored tonight to have known every single person that was mentioned today as a Sadr of Khuddamul Ahmadiyya or a Qaid National of USA, every single one of them. And I can tell you, all of them were humble, dedicated, beloved servants of Huzur, Khulafa, and of all of you and this Majlis. And I think we should be paid tonight over and over again in prayer, our gratitude for their services. And that's the way we can truly honor them. and remember them and bless them in the best ways, inshallah, now and going forward. So please join me in a final prayer for all of these Sadran who are here and others who couldn't make it, Naseem Wasim Saab, Syed Sajid Saab, of course, Shakur Ahmed Saab, Munir Hamid Saab, and others who have passed on. All of them, please keep in your prayers. Let us pray now and thank Allah for this blessed day. Ameen.
नारायण तकबीर हजरत मोहम्मद मुस्तफा गुलाम अहमद की इस्लाम अहमदियत खिलाफत अहमदिया शोहदाए अहमदियत MCA इन्नी माँ का नारायण तकबीर